What's up, everybody? So today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of riding my bike, I'm going to provide you guys with something equally as awesome. Lately, I've been on different mountain bike groups, different YouTubers, checking out the comments, and I keep seeing people who've either just bought a GoPro or maybe they've had one for a while. They still don't know what settings they should be using. They don't know what to do with the footage after they get it. Like, what software should they be using? They don't know how to actually, once they have software, how they should edit it. They don't even know how to use it to begin with. They don't know how to properly render it, so when they upload it to YouTube and they're wondering why it looks like total shit. So today, I'm going to provide you with all of that. I'm going to give you my GoPro settings, what software I use to edit my GoPro footage, how to edit that GoPro footage, and also how to render it so after it's completely done and you upload it to YouTube, it looks completely fucking awesome. So, let's get into it. Alright, so we've got our GoPro, and we need to make some settings change. There's not a ton of settings in the GoPro, mind you, so there's not a whole lot to change, but there are a few important settings that need to be changed to make your GoPro footage look really good. So we can come down here to the different modes. And there's some preset ones on here already that you can adjust or you can create your own. I made one called bike. You hit the little pencil icon over here on the right. And then this takes you to the settings that you have that you can adjust. Now the ones that are really important, and I'm going to go through them one by one, we have our resolution and our frames per second. Also, if you have a GoPro that can shoot in 4K or higher, I recommend shooting in 4K or higher. That's going to give you the best quality YouTube video that you can if you can shoot in 4K. So I have it on 4K frames per second. I have it on 30. 30 just seems to have a better look to it when I see it on YouTube. When I see any with 60 frames per second, it looks a little too realistic and it just looks odd to me. It just doesn't seem right. And the lens mode, you can adjust this to wide, linear, or super view. Super view, you get a much wider view of the trail. So I keep it on super view. And that's another important setting to have it on as well. The more you can see, the better it's going to be. And I also keep it on super view because for hyper smooth, I use boost. Boost gives you a much more stable platform for your GoPro, so it's not shaking or getting a lot of chatter. It does crop the video in a little bit more, so the super view helps with that, now that you can actually have boost with super view as part of one of their updates. We'll leave it on boost. That's an important setting to have it on as well. I'm sure you can get away with regular hyper smooth as well. You don't have to use boost if you don't want to. I don't mess with any of the low light or zoom. I leave it as what it was. As original defaults, I should say. Now, another really important setting is your bit rate. This is the amount of video that is being processed per second. So the higher you can get your bit rate, the better. So leave it on high. I don't remember what the default is, but always put it on high. Yes, you get larger file sizes because of it being high, but the quality of your video is going to be a ton better. Shutter I leave on auto. EV comp, I pretty much leave that on -1. You can adjust that. I think it only goes down to 2. Yep, 2. And all that does is adjust how bright the footage is. Like, you can make it a little bit darker, like if it's too bright out, that can just balance out a little bit better for you. White balance I leave on auto. Your ISO min 100. ISO max, I put at 800. Now, if you do come into a lower light situation, you know, with here in America, our days are definitely getting much shorter. It's getting darker earlier, and you need a little bit more low light because the GoPros do not handle stabilization very well in low light. So if you increase your ISO max up to allow more light in, that's going to benefit you and make your GoPro operate better. Sharpness I leave at medium. color I leave on GoPro color. I do very little color grading. I do some, but I don't do a lot. And to me, honestly, GoPro color looks fine. I don't know why a lot of people give it some flack, but it is what it is. For the mic, I leave on stereo. I don't mess with the wind noise. Once you put the wind noise on, the sound can just get a little weird. So leave that alone, stick to stereo. And that is it. These are just shortcuts that you can have on your main screen. All right, well, I hope that helps you make your GoPro footage look a little better to start with before you take it to post. All right, and we're gonna get into post here next. All right, everyone, now that you got your footage from your GoPro, it's looking awesome. You don't know where to go from here. What do I use to edit it? I am going to show you exactly what I use. I use down here what's called DaVinci Resolve. Now, this is completely free software. You don't have to pay anything for it. You can. They do have a studio version. Not sure exactly the huge difference between it. I haven't really looked into it. I just use the free version because I am poor as shit. And I will show you where to go to get that. You're going to go to blackmagicdesign.com. Go to products. You're going to scroll down just a little bit. I'm sure you can also just use the search for it as well. And here is the DaVinci Resolve free version. And of course the new version is 17. I'm still on 16. I haven't decided to do 17 yet. It just gives you a little idea of what you can use. And this is very powerful software. It's professional grade. You get a lot of features with just the free version. You can pretty much do anything that you can with using Adobe products like Adobe Premiere or something else. It is pretty amazing what you can do with this software. And this is what I use. It does have a bit of a learning curve, but there's a lot of people on YouTube who are teaching how to use this. So it turns out not to be too bad. Also, I think there's a learning curve with practically anything that you use. And you do need some decent software to run it. It is a powerful program, uses up a lot of resources. So the better that you have of a system, the better it's going to run for you. All right, now that we've got our settings set up on our GoPro, that way we can create some awesome footage for our mountain biking videos. We found an editing software in using DaVinci Resolve. And now I'm going to show you how to actually edit your footage that you've captured using DaVinci Resolve. I've already got a window open. Once you actually create a project and you open it up, this should be the first screen that you see, and this is on the cut page. And I pretty much only use this page to add all my videos, any images that I'm going to be using for making this video, and I add them in here. And I've got a few videos that I'm going to select to put in here. Use these three, and you just drag them onto your media pool. And it says that the clips have a different frame rate. That means that the settings that it was set to were at 60 frames per second, and I film in 30, so I'm just going to say change so that it leaves my settings at 30 frames per second. All right, now I've got my clips here in the media pool. You got these tabs down here on the bottom, and I mainly use the edit page, fusion page, color page, and then I also, of course, you got to deliver it afterwards, but majority of the time you're going to be working down here in the edit page. So let's click on that. And then this is what you should see in here. These are about the defaults. I'm going to select all three of my clips here. As you see, they're highlighted red. Once you do that, you can drag them down here to your timeline, line it up to the side there, and it loads your timeline in. Now that our clips are down here on the timeline, we can do some editing. Now, this is more of a basic tutorial. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but this should be enough to get you started on how to actually use this software to make the videos that you want to make. And of course, there's a bunch of other people on YouTube that you can find that have some really great tutorials to get you started. All right, so first thing to do, obviously we want to cut out some footage. There's some parts of the video that you don't want in there. Obviously a lot of this stuff is going to be cutting, so we can select our blade tool here by either clicking on it or clicking B on our keyboard, which brings up our blade tool, and you can see that down here on the timeline, our icon changes, and then you just cut wherever you want. You just tap where you want. Say I want this part of my
footage gone. And you can see, wow, we got these little cuts down here, and we selected this side here. Go back to our selection tool. Click here so we actually have that footage selected. And then if we hit the delete button, it deletes that footage and then slides the rest over to line up to where we are. And of course, if we don't want that, you can do a Control-Z to add that back in if you made the wrong cut. Or you can come up here to the edit button and hit undo. That undoes everything that you've already done one at a time. So it'll get rid of that next cut there. But that pretty much explains the blade tool. Now that we know a little more about the blade tool, we're going to look at how to add titles, how to do video transitions, and a few other things. And this comes from the effects library, which is what you see over here on the left. If you do not see this right here, you can come up to the top where it says effects library. You can see if we toggle that off, it turns gray. Click it again, get that bright white, and then your effects library comes up. And you can see over here in the toolbox, you see video transitions, audio transitions, titles, generators, effects, those kinds of things. And I'll show you how to use a couple of these. So for instance, the titles, very simple stuff of what you do. You just click on titles. They have some pre-made Fusion titles, which these are like some 3D graphics. You can use those, create your own. I usually use this basic Fusion title. You just click it and drag it onto your timeline wherever you want it. We'll bring our marker over as well so we can see it. As you can see, it just says title. And if you come over here to the right, this is what is called the inspector. This is where you're going to be making all of your changes to the size, what it looks like, and a bunch of other different things that you can change that are part of Fusion. You can track different things. You can animate this in some way or another using all these different tools that are on the side. So it just depends on what you want to use. And you'll see this little bar on the top as well. The more stuff you add to this can change how quickly your title loads on the screen. So it might play back shitty at first if you have a little red bar. Right now you see that it's blue. That just means that it loaded in and it will play back smoothly as you do it. I'll give you a little example of if you hit play, you see the title pop up. And then it goes away. And that is titles. I'm just going to undo that. Again, that just mess with the settings on your own and check it out. But that's just how you get to that. And then all the other things are basically the same if you want to add video transitions to where like certain cuts are. So let's put a cut here, for example. You can get a video transition by clicking on video transitions. And of course, they have all these pre-made ones, which you can adjust on your own as well. So we'll just say, I'm just going to pick a crazy one here. Let's do a push. So if you come over here, you just put it right there where your brake is. And you can extend this by clicking on the edge here, and you'll see the arrow change to this double-walled arrow icon. It allows you to drag how long you want that transition to be. And of course, on the inside, you see this little shaded area. You can also control where that starts and where it begins. So you can also adjust those as well. But for instance, I'll show you what this looks like. This is really long, so it might not look very good. You see how it's pushing the screen because I chose the push. And again, also that was really long. Usually I find these, if they look short, they look better. Do it one more time. A little faster, look better than what it did when it was really slow. And of course, mess with all these. These are all different. Whatever you need to make. I don't recommend using a ton of transitions in your video. Try to limit that as much as possible. Only where they actually make sense. Obviously, this is like the same clip and just cut. I would never use a transition to go from that to another one. And then a couple other things that are really important. I'm going to show you the effects part. If you go to effects, the next important thing is going to be a Fusion composition. This is where you can actually add visual effects into your video. So if you click this, just like you did with the titles and the other things, again, you just drop it onto your timeline wherever you want it to be. And we'll go over to this. And you see how it's a black screen, and it's because we don't have anything set up yet in our Fusion tab. So if we come over here to Fusion, which we're going to adjust now, we're pretty much done in the Edit tab. Those were just a few of the basic things that I wanted to show you to get you started in the Edit tab. Go to Fusion, and then you get this screen. We'll move our median out here. I'm going to drag from my desktop a pre-made node structure that I have. If I click this and bring it down, and this is what a node structure looks like. You can think of this kind of like if you were to do Adobe Premiere or something else where they have layers that you work in when you're doing different adjustments and adding things to there, or especially with like coloring or anything along those lines. You get this node structure, and these merged nodes act as if are your layers in which you can add stuff to that particular layer and it won't affect the other layer. So I'm going to delete this because this one doesn't actually, this is just the median in. Just wanted to do that. I'm going to bring my photo down and connect these nodes back up. At the end of this node structure, you need to connect your median out, which actually displays the input. And then you can drag this up here, and it shows you on the timeline what the structure is. Again, I'm not going into detail how to set this up. This would be a whole nother tutorial to mess with. It takes a long time. For me to create this, it took me over an hour to do. So it would take a little bit of time to actually explain it and go through it. But that is pretty much that. So if we come back to our Edit tab, you should now see that Fusion title that we created here. And you see how I told you about the red bar earlier. As you play it back a few times, eventually that starts to turn blue. Because right now you're seeing how it's not a smooth playback. Once it's blue, it loads in and you'll get a smooth playback then as well. So that is the Fusion tab. Alright, the next thing we're going to get into is the Color tab. As you come into the Color tab, here is where you get your color wheels and a few other adjustments on the side. This is pretty much what I'm working in down here. I'm not messing with too much stuff from at this point. And while we're in here, one thing that you want to open up when you're color grading is what is called scopes. And scopes allows you to see, I'll turn it on here real quick. You get this stuff over here, and this just shows you how much color of the spectrum that you're seeing in your video. Obviously there's way more reds than there is blues or greens. So now when you're over here, you can adjust this and see how much color is being added. You typically want to see these balanced as much as possible. Having too much of one makes your videos maybe look a little odd or off. So what I start with, I'll come over here to page 2, and because the GoPro shows lighting and lots of things get blown out from the light, I'll take my highlights and I'll just take them way down and just make the video darker. It doesn't make it so blown out, and also you see the color scales of all these start to go down as you saw those adjustments being made. You can also make your shadows darker, brighter, depending on where you are. You can see the color spectrum over there changing as well, depending on what you're doing. Color boost just boosts the colors, and you can go in whichever direction. Also, you see I'm adding more red if I'm adding a color boost, because that's what most of the screen there makes up, is the red spectrum. But I can also turn it to the blue, and you can see everything start to change and balance out color-wise. Obviously, it's looking a little dull now after all that stuff, but then you can also come here to your wheels and start changing what you want to lift a little more. Like if I want to change this more, let's say I want a little more green tones in here. You can see the green start adjusting. I can change it more to the blue. Add a little bit more red if I wanted to with the lift. And you see my scopes are changing a little more as I'm adding to it. And you can just adjust that as much as possible. And of course, you can do the same thing with the gamma, the gain, or the offset. Again, I'm not going to go too much in depth with these things here. I typically use these things down here with the detail, color boost, shadows, highlights. You can come over here to tab 1 where I just clicked. And this is where you get your contrast, your saturation, the hue, your illumination. Again, it's just depending on what you want to mess with. This is all just getting you started. This is basic color grading. Again, I am definitely no expert when it comes to any of this stuff. I just make a few minor adjustments by adding some saturation into it, changing my highlights so it doesn't look too bright. You can get a little too more fine details with these color wheels. You can see you can make a little more adjustments by clicking the little circles here, where you can change your shadows. You can really fine tune what highlights you want, what colors you want to see in the highlights, what more colors you want to see in the shadows. If I want my shadows to be a little bit more blue or red, your midtones. Again, it's one of these, depending on your video, the time of day you're taking. It takes a lot of time, but just keep fiddling with these until your video looks exactly the way you want. Looks a little more natural. Again, I try to balance these as much as possible. And then after we do all this, we've done our stuff on the editing page. We've done our stuff in Fusion, created whatever graphics you wanted to add to your video. You color graded it the best you could. You can come over here to the Deliver tab. And the Deliver tab is where you're going to be rendering this. So before you upload it to YouTube, this is what's going to get you your really good quality instead of going to YouTube and having compressed the video and make it look like total shit. So if you come over here, you can leave it on custom, leave it on single clip. Also, you can add the file name wherever you want to add it to in the location you're going to be browsing to. So I'll just say edit, location, we'll put it in videos. We're just going to save it to that. And format, change it to QuickTime. This is one of the things that YouTube recognizes and can deal with properly. Leave on the codec H.264. Honestly, my resolution is 4K. I told you earlier. Be in 4K if you can. That's where you want it to stay. You can come over here where it says quality. Now this is where you want to change. It says automatic best. This doesn't really work. I do restrict to. And right now you see it's at 80,000 kilobytes. That might be okay if you're doing like 1080. But if you're doing something in 1440 or you're doing in 4K, you want to keep raising this up to over 100,000. And I usually do about 105 to 110. It doesn't matter if you want to go up higher. Obviously, this makes things a little bit longer because it's adding a lot more to the video for rendering purposes. And this right here, again, this is the one single thing that you do that will adjust your quality. And then you just come down here to add to render queue. And then you would start render. And then, of course, when that's done, you just upload it to YouTube. And that is how you do a proper render so you get the best quality when you go to upload it on YouTube. All right, everybody. That's it for the video today. Get out there, make some awesome footage on your GoPro. Get in DaVinci Resolve, make some edits. I hope that this tutorial that I gave you today will help give you the basic knowledge to get you started using DaVinci Resolve so you can make your YouTube channel stand out just a little bit more than what it is already. All right, everybody. Peace out.